Hello, BookTube. Welcome back to my 2026 library tour. In this episode, more history. In particular, French history. I have a shelf of French history. So, first up is House of Lilies, the dynasty that made medieval France by Justine Vernhaber Baker. So, this is a history of the first part of the Capetian dynasty. So the Capetians were elected kings of France in the 10th century, I think. Possibly the 9th century, but I think it was the 10th century. And they ruled in an uninterrupted father to son line until the early 14th century, at which point the three successive brother kings did not have male children, and the lords of the land decided to bypass the last of the brothers' daughter, and then also skip Isabella and her son Edward III, which would cause the Hundred Years' War later on, to give the crown to a distant relative, and this would be the Valois branch of the family. And then a few centuries later, it happens to the Valois, with Henry II's three sons, and then it moves on to the Bourbon branch of the family. So this is the history of this first part, from the 10th century to the early 14th century, and deals with how and discusses how many of these kings strengthened themselves and the institution of the French monarchy, and laid the groundwork for the kings of France to control the area that is now modern France. At the time, many parts of what are now France were semi-independent feudal landholdings, where the dukes and other titles of nobility had as much, if not more, power than the French kings. In fact, at one point, the kings of England had more of France than the French king did. So this is that story, and it is good. I liked it. Next is King of the World, The Life of Louis XIV by Philip Mansell. So Louis XIV was the second of the Bourbon kings. He came to the throne as a child and reigned for decades. And this is a really good biography with a focus on the global impact and ambitions of Louis XIV. This book has a special place in my heart, as I read it, and it gave me a lot of comfort during a period of time when my mother was in the hospital. Next is another biography. It is Louis, the French Prince Who Invaded England by Catherine Hanley. So this is the biography of Louis VIII, who was the Dauphin, or Crown Prince, to Philip Augustus, who was one of the French kings who went a long way to solidifying the position of the French king and the institution, and really bringing France to order. Now, Louis was married to a granddaughter of Henry II of England and Eleanor of Aquitaine, and this gave him a claim to the English throne, particularly since at this point Richard I had died, and if we're going by strict primogeniture, which had not yet been set up at this time, the throne should have gone to Geoffrey's son, who was at the time titular Duke of Brittany. However, his uncle John usurped him, and so he became King of England. However, John was not terribly good as a king. He pissed off a lot of his nobles, and many of them invited Louis to come in and to place John and become effectively king consort of England. However, John conveniently died, and his heir, Henry III, was a little baby, so they're like, we can control this baby more than we could Louis, so Louis was shown the door. I have not read the book yet, though. A biography that I have read is Young Queens, 3 Renaissance Women and the Price of Power by Leah Redmond Chang. So this is a group biography of 3, although you could say 4 women. Catherine de' Medici, her daughter, and Mary, Queen of Scots, with Elizabeth I of England looming in the shadows. So this is a really good biography of the 3 women. I really enjoyed it immensely. Speaking of Catherine de' Medici, I also have a recent biography of her, Catherine de' Medici, The Life and Times of the Serpent Queen by Mary Hollingsworth. This is a pretty good biography of her, and I read it during another time when my mother was in the hospital. I have a third biography of Catherine de' Medici, Catherine de' Medici, Renaissance Queen of France, by Leonie Frida. Now, this is also pretty good, although it's been a while since I've read it. And then I have a biography of Francis I, the Maker of Modern France, by Leonie Frida. Marie Antoinette, The Journey, by Antonia Fraser. So this is probably the most popular biography of Marie Antoinette. I tried to read it about 3 years ago for Steve Donahue's STD book club. And I was enjoying it for the most part until we get to the Revolution, at which point I kind of checked out. I also have Marie Antoinette, The Making of a French Queen, by John Hardman. So this is another biography of Marie Antoinette. And I have a biography of Napoleon III, The Shadow Emperor, by Alan Strauss Schulm. I tried to get into this and it did not quite work for me. I also have A Distant Mirror, The Calamitous 14th Century, by Barbara W. Tuchman. So this is a history of the later 14th century. During the height of the 100 Years' War waged between England and France over who was properly King of France, and also the period where the bubonic plague struck both countries. It's the story of a young French nobleman, where are you at here? You're not going to tell me everything. Because it largely follows one individual, and I'm blanking on his name. But he was a French nobleman who was captured during a battle, and was taken back to England to be ransomed. And there he ingratiated himself with Edward III and married Edward III's oldest daughter. And so it's the story of him trying to balance being both a French nobleman and an English nobleman, as well as other things that happened during this time. It is pretty good, although perhaps a little dated in style. think I've read that twice. Or I read it for another book club STD. Next is The Emperor and the Elephant, Christians and Muslims in the Age of Charlemagne by Sam Otwell Soulsby. So this is a book about the diplomacy between Charlemagne and the Islamic world. Did not care for it at all. I think I bailed on it. Next is Four Queens, the Provençal sisters who ruled Europe by Nancy Goldstone. So this is a group biography of four sisters who were the daughters of the ruler of Provence, that region of France, and one of them became Queen of France, one of them became Queen of England, and the other two became prominent high noble women, and I think maybe another monarch. Did not particularly get on with this book, actually. And so the last book on this shelf is Revolutionary Spring, Europe Aflame, and the Fight for a New World, 1848 to 1849 by Christopher Clark. So this is a history of the revolutions of 1848 that saw the deposition of the House of Orleans in France and the other attempted depositions, as well as constitutional changes in the German states and in the Austrian Empire, or Habsburg Empire. Did not particularly get on with this, and I think I need to figure out a better spot to put it when I reorganize my history collection. So that is it for French history. Tomorrow I will begin on German history, which will take 2 episodes, although the second one is going to be more Habsburg than General German. Anyway, BookTube, until then, thank you, have a great rest of your afternoon, and enjoy it.